Welcome back to Everyday Elevations, the podcast where we transform ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes. So today, I'm very excited because we have a special guest, and this is going to be a unique episode compared to what I've done in the past. So Erica Laws, is originally from the US, and now she's based in the UK, I believe since 2013. And she is a certified relationship coach, a dating expert, and a matchmaker with a rich background in human resources for top-tier investment banks. So after 2 decades, give or take, in finance, where she excelled in headhunting financial executives, Erica actually shifted her focus to relationship coaching, earning her ICF accreditation. So she founded Laws of Attraction in early 2023, dedicating herself to helping individuals across the UK foster authentic connections and build healthy, lasting relationships. So her approach centers on the belief that self-worth directly impacts one's romantic life, combining her personal insights and professional experience to empower clients in the modern dating landscape. So I know that was a whole mouthful here, Erica, but with that, I'd love to let you give yourself a little bit more of an introduction, and I would love to hear about that transition from finance to dating and relationship coaching.
Absolutely. First of all, great introduction. That was a mouthful. You nailed it. So thank you for that. And it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me on. So I am Erica from America, which is what I tell everyone in the UK when I introduce myself, because it's very easy to remember me that way. I moved to the UK back in 2013. I fell in love with London/England when I was at university. I took a trip here and fell in love and just knew that it needed to be my home. And so when I graduated, I grew up in Virginia. And when I graduated from university, I basically put all the feelers out there that I could to try and get a job in the UK. And had basically, I must have applied for 100 jobs, and I got one real callback/interview, which was for a bank, a very large investment bank, working in HR. At the time, the job was called a reporting specialist, and it was as unsexy as it sounds. And my background was in communication and public relations. And so this job really couldn't be further from what I imagined I would do. But I wanted so badly to be in the UK that when I went through the process and was offered a role, I jumped at the opportunity. And that basically started a 2-decade-long trajectory in working in finance, in human resources in finance. And so basically towards 2020 was a tough year for lots of people. As a part of sort of the tough year of COVID and lockdown in the UK, our lockdown was very, very strict. Actually, obviously have lots of family back home. And so there was quite a difference in sort of what we were experiencing here versus what people were experiencing back home. And probably the worst part is the UK weather in the winter sucks, right? So get to the end of 2020, going into 2021, and we went into another lockdown. The weather was awful. People were just down, right? It had been like 9 months of this. And during that time, I was just really feeling the burnout from work. And my job, I worked 50 to 60 hour weeks. I took my work phone on every holiday I went on. Even when I took a holiday, it didn't feel like holiday because I still was managing a team and touching base with my stakeholders, and basically went into 2021 thinking I can't do this. This is not sustainable long term. And I basically told myself that I had never considered leaving. I'd basically been at my organization for, at that point in time, 7, 8 years. So it's a really long time to be in one place. And I thought I was going to retire there, basically. They've done some amazing things for me. Obviously, it moved me to the UK. I ended up moving across the Atlantic Ocean with my firm 3 times. I went to Nashville to work with them for a project for 18 months, and they flew me back to London. So it really gave me so many incredible opportunities. But, I think like a lot of people in the pandemic, like I knew something had to change, and it was kind of like the kick I needed to sort of figure out what that meant. And so for me, I just thought, I need to go and work in a different organization. So long story short, I left, I got a job offer at a different bank, and went to work there. And it was like my dream job. I was managing this great team and looking after the business that I wanted to look at. It was really like peak career for me. Like that is what I've been working really, really hard. That's why I was taking my phone on holidays. I was doing it to reach this point and got this job, and it was amazing. Like for all intents and purposes, it was the job I wanted, and the team was great, and the culture was great. And like most people, most women, I would say mothers, me and my husband, we were expecting. And when I was just about in the UK, we have a 12-month maternity leave, which is government protected maternity leave. So you are given up to 12 months, or you're giving 12 months minimum, basically protected by the government, which is amazing. We're very, very lucky. And basically, I had my son and was about to have my son. And I was like telling my boss, she was asking me, you don't have to tell me now, but around how much mat leave do you think you're going to take? And I was like, I'll be back in 3 months. Don't you worry. I'm going to be answering emails in the hospital. Like, this is what I was telling myself. I was telling other people too, but I was like, my job is such a big part of me and the work I do, and I'm really proud of it. And yeah, like any mom, I think, any parent really, right? You welcome a child in and everything changes. And it was really like holding a mirror up, right? It was like all of a sudden he got here, and I just kind of like, my priorities shifted, and that itch that I felt, or that nagging feeling that I got in 2020 was back, and I wasn't working, right? I was on maternity leave, and I was starting to feel like the dread of like going back to work and doing this job. And, it was quite an eye opener for me. And basically, I had been trying to figure out like, okay, what does this mean? What do I need? What do I want to do? And in my job, so my role, this dream job that I had was basically, I was working as an in-house headhunter, and I was managing a team, and I was hiring, I looked after a business that they needed someone to, the business needed someone who was really good at, trading X commodity. I managed the sales and trading team from an HR perspective, through like recruitment and talent. And I would sit with my stakeholders, and they would tell me the type of person they needed to come in and do this job. And my job was to go and find that person. We spend time interviewing people, meeting with people, figuring out who's going to be the right fit in terms of skill set, but also culturally, like who's going to fit into that desk, who's going to fit into that team and be a good fit for the overall, team, but also the company and, all of these things. And so that basically, in this like soul searching, sort of wondering what I should do, I'm very lucky. I have a very good friend who is a very female senior leader. She works at a big consultancy in New York, and she's also a certified career and success coach. So she was over in London. She does a lot of work in London, and was over in London, and we went and grabbed drinks at Christmas. It was Christmas time. And I'd invited a couple of people, and one of my friends who actually happened to be also worked in my business that I supported. He came and met us, and I was asking him, he'd recently gone through a breakup. And I asked him, how it was going. How is he dating? And he told me he had hired a matchmaker and he had gone on 3 dates that were organized by the matchmaker, but he really wanted children. It's why him and his previous partner had broken up. And he told me that the first date the matchmaker set him up on was with a woman who didn't want children. For me, that's like matchmaking 101, right?
Yeah, like that to be the whole purpose. Like pay attention to your client.
Exactly. Yeah, you're paying this person money to go and find you. And like in the work I do now, obviously I really appreciate like values are the number one contributor, aligned values, the number one contributor for longevity in relationships. And right, like family value is a huge thing. So like you can't even get that right. And so we're having this conversation and he was like, but I've hired her. I was like, okay, so like what now? So well, I've renewed our retainer to have her give me 3 more matches. And I was like, wait, what? You've had this woman didn't do a good job and you paid her again to do this. And so I said, no, like, let me do this. Let me find you some women to go out with that are going to be aligned. And my friend, who's this coach, was there, and I like went to the loo or went to get drinks, something, come back to the table, and she just leaned over to me and said, "That's what you're meant to be doing. That's what your skill set is exactly the same, right? I'm a corporate matchmaker. Basically, it was my job, right? I went and found what people wanted and made sure they were the right fit. And yeah, so that was what started. I ended up that planted the seed, so to say. And that's kind of, sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to how I got here, but that is what started what is now, I founded a dating consultancy called Laws of Attraction. And it's actually, I decided to go and become a certified relationship coach. And so got my certification and really started taking on clients and finding out that there was less of a need for matchmaking and way more of a need for a dating coach and a relationship coach. Like people were really struggling with the modern dating landscape. It's a jungle out there. And there's so many apps. The etiquette for apps changes, feels like it changes every day. The pool of people, the dating pool of people that people have access to is absolutely brilliant. But it means that you can get really bogged down and not really know what you're looking for, who you should be, like how to attract these people, what are the red flags in dating, things like that. And so when I started sort of marketing my business and speaking to people, I realized that the real need was for people who needed support on their dating journeys. And so I am, still running Laws of Attraction. And it's been I've had a really incredible response, and we've grown so much, even in less than 2 years, which has been really amazing. And I really just help people find their people, which is something I've been doing for 2 decades, but it's a much more rewarding industry now.
Well, look, so first off, I love the fact that you reference HR and like headhunting. I didn't really think about it to now as like essentially matchmaking. I never really thought of it in that sense. Of course, it makes complete sense. I'm in HR myself, and one of my key roles is recruitment. That's why I got brought onto this company, because when they interviewed me, I told them, I was like, hey, recruiting's my jam. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I love the puzzle pieces of it. That's the most fascinating part for me, is how do I get this person to fit in to this role here, or where can they actually fit in? And are they culturally a fit? When you said that, I was like, all kinds of like little fireworks went off in my head. I was like, yeah. I was like, it's so underrated that people don't realize that to be a cultural fit is way more important than being and I'm going on a tangent here, by the way, but to be a cultural fit is way more important to me, and as far as we start the company, than someone who strategically can do the job. Because you can find plenty of people who can do the job, are more than capable of it, but they're not the right fit for that company. So when you said that, I was like, ooh, I was like, okay. I was like, a little bit of chills, and also kind of fun just relating this to relationship coaching. So
that same, idea applies to relationships, right? Like plenty of people are capable of a relationship and functioning in a relationship, right? But it's finding the person who aligns with you in the right ways, but also, and you probably experienced this in recruiting, because I certainly did, right? People were like, no, I need to find a candidate that does X, Y, Z. And you're like, you find a candidate that has maybe two of the three big things, but they also have something about them, right? So whether that's like they are, really innovative, or, just something that they're going to do really well when they hit the desk and they're going to thrive in that role. And it's trying to convince someone like the manager, right, that this person is actually, they don't look on paper exactly like the candidate you're saying you're looking for, but I'm proud, like, be a bit more open-minded, because this is the candidate you need, right? And that's exactly what I do with my clients sometimes. I have to be like, they may not look exactly like you want, but like they have, your values are aligned. You have very similar interests. You're going to get on like a house on fire. So like give it a go. So it's very, very similar. So I'm sure you can understand that those kind of comments.
Well, I love it. And yeah, I get where you're going with it. Let me ask you this, just because you mentioned the apps, and that's so prevalent in today's society. Heck, I met my fiance off of Bumble. So she swiped right on me. I think left is no, right is yes. Okay. It'd be awkward if she swiped left and we still somehow met on Bumble. But so we met on there. And one of those things I found with dating, and I'm just curious what your strategy on this is, that I found these dating apps are kind of like a cheapened version of Instagram. You kind of put up almost like most people put up like a fake version of themselves. What I was finding. It's what I was finding out once I went on dates with people. I'm like, but this isn't who you are. Like, you're putting this stuff here to kind of fit yourself into a category of maybe where you want to be. I don't know, but I found that most of them weren't really genuine until I met my fiance. I was like, oh, she's exactly what her profile says, and some. How does somebody, there's a question here, I promise. How does somebody set themselves up for success to be their authentic self while also not turning somebody off? What I found is I try to be my comedic self on the app, and because I'm naturally just a lighthearted, joking guy, but you can't always read sarcasm and jokes in there, and some people aren't looking for that. What are some strategies?
Well, first of all, you're going to turn people off, right? That's the reality. Like, no, not everyone's going to understand your humor or accept your humor, and that's okay, right? That's a big part of what I try and teach people is like, show up as your authentic self, because the people you are attracting are the right kind of people. But women do it more than men. And by the way, my work is based off lots of research and behavioral science and psychology. So anything I'm talking about facts when it comes to dating apps is all based off of real research. But women especially, they curate their profile to what they think the guy they want to attract wants, right? So like, I've had a client who had made, when I got her, so part of the work I do is I help my clients with their profiles. And so we go through and make sure it's showing the best sides of them, right? Highlighting their good. It's like a resume, right? It's your first impression. And so the work I do is making sure their profile shows different sides of them, right? And is attention grabbing and things like that. But I had one client, and her whole profile was all basically about her being outdoorsy and like going on hikes and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, we've been working together for a few weeks now, and like your profile is very different, disconnected to like how I know you spend your time. How I know what you like to do. Like, in the time I've known you, I don't think you've ever been outside for an extended period of time, And she was like, oh, and we got into it in a session. It was basically like, she had in her mind that she wanted to attract this like lumberjack outdoorsy type man, but she isn't outdoorsy, right? So she was like trying to mold herself into what she thought would be accepted. And a lot of the work I do with people is like, one, really honoring those like special quirky bits about yourself, because people do like them. Exactly what you said about your wife, right? like she got your humor, right? She swiped right because like she got something you did. She was like, yes, resonated with her. And that's exactly what everyone should be doing, right? Because we've had this fear of rejection. Like humans hate rejection, and I totally get it. But it's about reframing that rejection. Like if someone doesn't like you for you, then there's no longevity there, right? Like if you're showing up as someone who's not your authentic self, like there's no chance in that going. Because let me tell you guys, when you're in a relationship, you get to see you see all of it, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So that facade that you've put up will very quickly be debunked. People will see through that, right? So it's all about being comfortable being your authentic self and reframing that rejection, right? It's not that they didn't like you. It's, do I want to even invest any time in someone who doesn't like me for me? Do I want to invest any time in someone who doesn't get my humor? Do I want to invest any time with someone who's going to judge me for sitting on my couch and watching Netflix and ordering a takeaway on a Saturday? Right? Like being our authentic selves is something that everyone, I think for a lot of people, is a work in progress, right? But it's about being comfortable. Like you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that is totally fine, because people who do show up, like do engage with your profile, right? Those are who you want. Those are who you want to be starting conversation.
Okay, so tip number 1, be your authentic self. Let me ask you, because we're just going to go down this rabbit hole of dating apps, because that's where most people are at nowadays, especially since COVID happened. Side note, really interesting when you had to put I've gotten the vaccine on there. You get rejected with or without that. Like, oh, it's so silly looking back on it, but also understandable. Yeah. Anywho, when it comes to like profile pictures, what do you recommend for that type of portrayal of yourself?
Great question. So again, all of this is based off of research. So this is actually based off of research from Hinge, Bumble, and Tinder. And it's all about the most engagement that people get on their profiles. So what I tell my clients is you should have 5 pictures minimum on your profile, right? And every picture should show something different, like a different side of you is what I say, a different side, but they should all be different pictures. I don't want 5 to 7 photos of you at the same barbecue, because what you're telling people is that you like to go to barbecue, right? Cool. That's one thing. Okay. And I also don't want 5 to 7 photos of you with your cat, right? We got it. You have a cat, but the cat only needs to be in 1 to 2 photos, right? So like make sure your photos are showing different sides to you. But your first photo in a dating app should always be a clear headshot. I don't mean like a professional headshot, but a photo of your face very clearly, front and center, not something of you, 15 feet away from where the photo was taken, right? It needs to be, people want to see your face. They want to be able to see your facial features, no filters, no sunglasses on this photo, right? Just your face. And it can be, cropped at your waist or whatever, but make sure it's a clear headshot of your face. The second photo is a full body shot. And this is because people want to know what you look like, and you owe that to them, right? We owe being honest about what we look like. And so if you have body confidence issues, I just really encourage you that your person is going to find your body so beautiful. I promise you. And there's a lid for every pot. And so please, I have a lot of clients that I've started working with them, and they've never been comfortable putting a full body shot on, but it is so important, and it's going to make your dating experience better because you're being honest, right? Because if you don't put any body shots and then you go out on a date and someone shows up and you look differently, it opens the door for criticism and like people being not very kind. You will get upset because they will not want to see you again, right? That's just, so from the beginning, being honest and showing up as headshot, full body shot. Another one is doing something that you enjoy, a hobby activity. If you actually go hiking and go outside, put a photo of you on a hike, right? If you love to go out to eat, you're a bit of a foodie, post a photo of you in a restaurant, right? If you do any sport and you have a photo of that. If you just like to go and read at the beach and you have a photo doing that, right? Just showing you doing something that you enjoy doing. because people take things from these photos, right? So even if you don't put like, I like books and the beach, but there's a photo of you reading in a book, like that obviously conveys that message. So showing up and showing an interest that you have. The fourth one is a photo of you socializing. Now, no, where's Waldo? So don't put a photo of you and 10 other bridesmaids, right? Where people are having no idea which one you are. But if you have a photo with your girlfriends or your guy friends, then posting a photo of, maybe 3 or 4 of you. I always say 3 or 4 is a good number if you have a photo of you and your friends, because hopefully you're easily distinguishable there. Make sure it's rather up close, right? So people can see your facial features. Just be mindful that people want to see your face. And so making sure you have photos that are showing that. No, if you have any photos with you with sunglasses on, I tell clients to limit that to 1, 2 max. And then very importantly, and please, and when I say this, everyone listening, please don't put any photos older than 2 years old. And I hear it. I'm going to probably hear once a week saying, oh, I haven't changed that much. And you have, I promise. I know it sucks. We're all aging, but people can tell. And that is the worst thing with clients that I work with all of the time is when they show up on a date and someone they sit across from does not look like their photos, right? It's upsetting for everyone. It's a waste of time, right? And so making sure that your photos are recent and relevant and look like you and are clear for people to see you. And like I said, people are going, there's a lid for every pot. So if you are a bit nervous, I just really encourage you to obviously choose the photos that make you look the best, but don't go too heavy on the filters, and don't be ashamed to show what you look like and who you are.
See, I love these tips. Thank you so much for providing those. Because now I don't even know how I got selected by my fiance. I did almost, other than keeping my personality there, which is probably what won her over, just because I'm lighthearted, easygoing guy. But my photos were all out of whack. The one thing I was good about is I don't do huge group photos. It's a pet peeve of mine when I was going through the apps. Like, I don't know which, especially if you don't have one that differentiates you. Like, there's so many times I went across profiles. I'm like, you have 4 people that in all your photos. I don't know if that's you, your sister, like which one. Like, I have no clue. Like, so I got to swipe left. And who knows? Exactly. You could have been somebody amazing. Clearly, hindsight, obviously not. Like, not even obviously not, but obviously not the person for me because I found my person. But like, those are little things like the tips you say are so underrated. And I don't think people realize it. And I didn't think about it. I used the same headshot that I made back in 2019. Granted, I actually really didn't drastically look too different. I kept the same haircut and beard and was still the same chunky kind of guy at that moment in time. So I just looked a little more aged if you saw me in person. But in terms of like overall aesthetic, it probably was drastically different. Not enough to be like, oh, what the heck's going on? This is a whole different person. Once I find,
but even the age, right? Is I just want to hear from clients just like, oh, they're much older, but their photos look like, and it's like not that you look terribly different, but even that age thing, if people feel like someone was being disingenuous or dishonest to them, it stops it dead before anything even starts, right? Someone sits down from you and feels like you haven't been completely honest with the way you look, even just through your pictures, they immediately shut down.
That's fair. Okay. Well, I'm glad I don't have to worry about that part anymore because I don't like taking photos in the first place. But so I'm in the clear. Now I just got to worry about family photos. But I'm curious. So let's move past the photo part because that part you went into depth with and makes perfect sense. I think everyone's going to get a lot of pointers from that. I'm actually going to have my fiance's friend listen to this episode because she's on the apps and she dreads them. Absolutely dreads them, which can't blame her.
Tell her to call me. I can talk her down off that ledge too.
Yeah, I'll get her connected to you for sure. But let's talk the next step. So, okay, we swipe left or swipe right. Sorry, don't swipe left. And you begin the conversation. This is part where I never knew where to go. And I know I'm not the only person. Like I could start a conversation up, yada, 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 but I never knew when to say, hey, would you like to go on a date? Like, what is your thought process behind when do you actually ask? Is it too quick, too slow? Like, I'm just curious.
I am a big fan of doing things quickly and getting things off the app quickly. So in terms of engaging with someone, right? You swipe right, you pops up, oh, it's a match. You guys have both, swiped right on each other, and you can connect. Immediately get in there, right? Don't wait. And this is for if you're a guy or if you're a girl, right? If you're on Bumble, the girl typically has to message first. Although Bumble has come up with some new features that men can message, like have an opening line or something. But if you, regardless of the app, right? If you match, then go and message that person. Don't waste any time. Great way to message someone is please stop saying, "Hey, how are you?" Because a lot of people get that message multiple times a day, and it's not engaging. The way to stand out is to go to the person's profile who you match with. So, like Jason, I would go to your profile. I would look at it and see if you posted. Maybe you had a photo of you somewhere traveling somewhere like Paris I would know it's Paris because there's an Eiffel Tower, right? So like maybe you have a traveling photo that's easily identifiable so you know where they are. Maybe you've written in your thing that you favorite thing to do is listen to rock music and eat Oreos, in your pajamas, whatever, something, whatever your profile says, right? Then I would say like, oh, what's your favorite, rock band? And how do you eat your Oreo? Do you lick the icing or do you eat it all? Just like taking things from your profile and asking them questions about it, right? People love to talk about themselves. And so starting off the conversation by asking them something in their profile shows them, one, that you've taken time, you've made an effort, and you've looked at what you've put in your profile. But also if you're asking about you, you're way more likely to open up. You automatically start the conversation like with deeper than surface level, hey, how are you? Right? So that's my big advice for when you're messaging people. Go to their profile and pick something from their profile. Or if they don't have a lot on their profile and you still match, you can just say, hey, what's keeping you busy at the moment? Or questions like, if you could get a round trip ticket to anywhere in the world, where would you go and why? Right? These are questions that are going deeper than just the surface level, superficial, hey, how's it going? Right? So it's a good way to increase your interactions and the conversations you have on the app. And then when you're talking to someone, right, you're having these conversations. I have a lot of rules in the way and my dating coaching philosophy. My clients would laugh at me saying that because they are very used to them. But one of them is the 3-day rule. The 3-day rule is that you should not be messaging anyone on the app for longer than 3 days without asking them on a date. And I'd like it to be a lot less than that, but that is the absolute max. Because by days, if you've spoken to someone for 3 days, like you should know if you want to see them, right? And I think people because we have technology, we're so used to like just speaking all the time, right? And that is damaging a little bit to like dating culture, right? The purpose of apps are a tool. They should be used as a tool to help you meet people in real life, not as an activity to spend your time, right? Apps aren't for you to spend time in the evenings, right? They're not for you to occupy your time. They should be used as a tool to help you meet someone. So use them as that, right? Exchange a few messages and then propose to go out for a coffee, right? I'm not saying you have to go for a dinner with every single person you're talking to. I think small, short dates for first dates are really good, 1 to 2 hour dates. So a walk, a coffee, depending if you live in a city, a walk is good. A coffee, a drink, right? Just meeting, sitting down with them, getting to know them, then asking more of those questions, and then deciding if you want to keep dating, you want to go on another date with them. But we get so caught up in this like back and forth talking that I have people that I speak to, like people who reach out to me on Instagram will have been speaking to someone for weeks and don't have a date in the diary. And that's a huge issue because the momentum dies down, but also our brains we start filling the gap. We start narrating and building a story off things. So if you're talking to someone and the chat is great, you're texting back and forth, you're going to start being like, oh, this is my person. Oh, this is great. And you haven't even met this person yet. And then when you go on a date with them, there's no connection, right? And then you're really disappointed and you've invested all this time and you're super disappointed, or they ghost you, right? And that is happening more and more. People invest lots of time in talking to someone and then they drop off the face of the earth, right? And that is people who are looking for affirmation, they're looking for validation, attention, etc. But you can avoid being ghosted if you make sure that you're not spending too much time talking to someone before you get a date in the diary, right? If you make sure you're not investing too much time in someone, you're much less likely to get disappointed.
Interesting. I'm just trying to, I mean, it's been a minute.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but it's also amazing information. And I'm just trying to, I was just in my head, I was trying to think because I know there's points where I got ghosted. I'm like, was it me just talking for too many days? I think that definitely played a factor, I'm sure. I just can't recall. I've obviously deleted all the apps, don't need them anymore. But I'm one of those people that overanalyzes things. I go into analysis paralysis, and I feel like there's probably a ton of people out there, a ton of your clients that do the same thing, where they're trying to figure out, am I asking this person out too soon, or did I wait too long? Do they even like me? And those are things that would go through my head before I even go ahead and ask. There's no question here. There's just a statement on that. But
no, I do it all the time. It's very much so, right? But a big part of my philosophy and my methods for dating are to be more efficient, right? And I know it doesn't sound as like sexy, right? Dating efficiently, but like all that great, amazing stuff comes after the first couple of dates, right? Like you start to get a connection growing and stuff. Whereas society puts so much weight on this like instant spark or chemistry. And that is destroying dating for people. It means people are really missing out on like really good quality people because they don't like feel that chemical reaction when they sit down with them. But that can grow and develop, right? And most of these people are the good guys, right? And I mean guys in the universal guys and girls, right? People are seeking this like this spark where instead of focusing on the goodness, the good character traits that someone has, and you get through that much easier, right? When you date more efficiently, right? Not spending too much time investing in people until they're worth investing in, right? Invest your time and energy into someone once you've been on a few dates with them and you know they're a good person, right? Then do it. Like then you can text them all the time and spend time getting to know them over text and calling and like making more plans. But like dating is dating, and you should be putting yourself out there as much as possible. And it's, if you get caught up on the apps, you really lose the dating, right? I know people who literally will speak to people all the time and have one date a month, maybe. That's insane to me. And that's not what the purpose of the apps are for, right? So that's me on my soapbox. Sorry.
No, I love it. So I'm kind of curious because something triggered in my head just because based off of my dating experience. And by the way, we have to do a second episode because I have so many other questions, but what my other questions are going to create a whole nother episode. So I have to wait for those for another time. I realized that as I was thinking about asking, I was like, no. We got to do a part 2 of this for sure.
I'm down.
Awesome. So if you're listening, know there's a part 2 coming out. This is just the dating apps portion of it. But I'm curious. So we start off from the apps, right? I'm going to use my personal experience here. At one point, do you tend to, or if you even do you recommend someone like makes a move? And I'm going to preface a little bit by my own personal story because analysis paralysis. I'm very easy to go, hey, yeah, let's go on a date, let's go do this. But to actually like make a move, going for a kiss, things like that. Like I'm like, ooh, well, she doesn't want to, things along those lines. And this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, by the way. But I believe our first kiss was like 4 or 5 months into the relationship. She wasn't sure if we were just friends. at this point or not? And then, yeah, I know, believe me, I realize how ridiculous in hindsight, but it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know if she really likes me like that. I have fun hanging out. So if we're just friends, that's cool. Like I had the same things going through my head. And which, side note, I always hate that the guy's supposed to make the move. I think anyone can make the move. Whoever's ready to make the move first, make it.
Amen. Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of women making the move and asking guys out and showing their confidence. And that way, confidence is sexy, regardless of your gender, by the way, it comes. And that was universal, guys. Girls. In terms of making the first move, I will preface this by saying I have no judgment, by the way, whether what happens on a first date, whether you don't touch or whether you have an adult sleepover, right? I do not care. I do not have any judgment. But in saying that, just talking about your experience, right? There is something in that because just statistically, the longer you wait to have any kinds of physical intimacy, and that includes kissing, attributes to the longevity of a relationship. And now 4 months is a long time, so I do not recommend that. But there is a lot of research behind waiting a few days to then start to explore the physical. And I have absolutely no judgment. I will disclose I did absolutely kiss my husband on our first date. So that is not, I did not apply, this method did not apply to me. But there is a lot of research that shows longevity in relationships for people who have waited at least a few days initially. And to make the first move, right, I think there's sort of two-part answer to this. But to make the first move with someone, I think a big part of it is reading the room. And I say this as someone who works with clients every single day who are going on multiple dates a week. The worst, the feedback that I get from the worst dates for my clients are when someone else has not had an awareness of like what's happening between the two people, right? So a lot of times that shows up in like someone going in for the kiss and not the other person not being receptive, right? And this is, or vice versa, someone wanting to be kissed and wanting this, but not getting anything from the other person. And then they go home and they're like, oh, they don't like me. They have no interest in me, right? Which a lot of times is also not correct. It is about reading the room and having an awareness. So a lot of times I tell people, like, I tell this to my client. So if you were my client, I would say, if you called me after a date, I do like date debriefs, post-date debriefs with my clients. So if you called me after a date, like, I really liked her, but we didn't kiss like I wanted to, but I couldn't tell she liked me, I would tell you to show your interest by complimenting. So this is, I tell everyone, you can compliment initially on appearance. So like if you go to meet someone on a first date, oh, you look great, you look beautiful, you look handsome, whatever. And that should be the only physical compliment you give them. Everything else, compliment other things about them, right? Like if they tell you a story and in that story they've done something, really kind or generous, compliment that. If they're a woman and they're talking about their job, compliment their job and the work they do, right? For a man, if he has planned the date, compliment his effort in planning the date, right? Like compliments show people our interest. That's a good way to already like start waving the flag, like, oh, I'm keen for this, right? I'm interested. So really compliments, even if you suck at flirting, which a lot of people, it's not a natural thing, right? Compliments are a great way of showing your interest in someone, but also see how you're getting it back, right? Are they complimenting you? Are they asking you questions? Are they engaged? Are they asking you questions? What's their body language like? Are they making eye contact? Is there moments where you could have like a little touch, right? Like, and I don't mean like maybe it's, I'm going to the bathroom and touching their shoulder as you get up from the table, right? Or maybe it's you're sitting next to each other in a bar and you gently like graze their elbow, right? So like these gentle, very subtle touches to indicate to someone. So these little things that should come together and show an awareness of whether, if someone is interested, right? So reading the room, the self-awareness on dates can be really low sometimes. And it's really important. So like, see how people are meeting. Are they asking you questions about yourself, right? What's the engagement like? Is there the eye contact? Like I said, body language is really important too. So did that answer your question? I feel like I sort of did a roundabout way.
To answer the question, it made me realize that there is no reason I should have been in a relationship with at this point. We're just fated to be together.
Love always.
But no, it's so funny because as you're going through this stuff, I'm just going through my head. I'm like, oh yeah, yep, way too long for that. Like thinking about subtle moves, like if I said something funny, she would definitely touch my arm, things like that. Oblivious, completely oblivious. And the funny part is, I'm actually good at flirting. Like, not that I'm obviously not anymore, but like I was always like good at picking up on that typically. But the thing is, when you're actually interested in somebody is when, for me anyhow, is when I was like, ooh, I don't really know if they like me. That's when I get my own head. Kind of like you mentioned, like clients and stuff. So it's just fascinating hearing you go through that whole process. With that, I kind of want to stop this here. I want to ask more questions for this part 2 of this. But before I do that, I always love to leave the floor open a little bit. If there's anything that maybe you want to touch on before we do part 2, of course. And then I'll ask a couple questions not related to this episode. I like to ask a couple questions at the end of each episode.
Okay, great. No, I think just the big takeaway is that for anyone listening to this, right, is one, you're never too old and it's never too late to start dating. So regardless of where you are and what's going on in your life and your dating or relationship history, right, I could always get back on the horse. And I know it can be super overwhelming dating, like online dating especially, but truly, truly showing up as your most authentic self is how you're going to find your person or your people, whatever you're after, even if you're just after like a summer flings and dating, summer's coming, the weather's getting warmer, people love dating, and maybe you're not as like looking for a long-term relationship at that time. Regardless, like just make sure, be comfortable in being yourself, and that is going to be absolutely perfect for so many people. But the real struggle is when you end up being inauthentic online, and then you have to. It's a lot. It's a facade to put up, right? You have to, it's exhausting, and it usually always leads to disappointment and pain and hurt. And so just that would be just my little piece of advice to people. Is I know it's super overwhelming, but I promise that someone is going to love you for exactly who you are.
So just be you.
Just be you.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. So I'm going to ask you these questions here. I don't think of 2 new ones for the next episode, but because this is actually the first 2-parter I'm ever doing. There's just so much information that we need to, like, I feel like it'd be doing the audience a disservice if we don't do a second part to this, because there's dating such a complex world. We only talked about the technological aspect and following up from there. Like, there's so many other things I want to talk about, the psychology behind dating. But before I go into a whole rant on that, let me ask you my question here. So if there's any quote that defines you as a human being, sometimes you like put on your gravestone, what would that be?
Oh, what would that be? I'm trying to think. This is, I would say, a blast in a glass.
Okay. I'm going to need a little more explanation.
I'm a good time. I'm pretty sure that's something from Jersey Shore from a really long time ago. So please don't judge me. But I really like it because I am a blast. I'm a good time. And it rhymes. So that was the first thing that came to my head. And yeah, that's what I have for you.
I love it. That is definitely the most unique quote I've had so far. no one's quoted Jersey Shore. By the way, I'm going to definitely have my fiance listen to this because she loves and forces. I shouldn't say force. I enjoy Jersey Shore too. It's tacky, guilty pleasure at this point. Because
a little bit of reality.
Yeah.
TV.
I mean, is it reality though?
Whatever you call it. Yeah. Entertainment.
Yes, live entertainment. How about that? But yeah, so it's funny she used that quote. I was like, oh, crazy. Okay, so the final question, if my brain will work, it's a two-part. So what would you define your superpower as? And then the second part is, if you could have any other superpower, whether it's comic book superpower or something else, what would that superpower be?
I would say my superpower is caring for people, things, whether it be stray animals or humans. I have that sounds a little, I don't know, maybe full of myself, but I can, regardless of what I'm doing, I can the people I love, I look out and care for them. And that means for example, on a night out in my 20s, regardless of how much was drunk, I knew where my people were at all times. And I would be truly, could be 2:00 in the morning and I'm vigilant that no one's drink is open and available for anyone to put anything in it. Right. I always making sure everyone is okay. I'm making, we're taking the safest route. So I have this, sixth sense that I can have had lots and lots of wine and still am very in tune for caring for my people. And that shows up in my sober life too, in many ways. But yeah, I would say my ability to care and care for people and things and animals and anything that needs my love. Really.
I think we're very similar people in that regard. It's probably the military vigilance of myself. I'm ex-military, but that's the same thing. I always have my head on a swivel, kind of pay attention to everything, no matter how drunk. I mean, I don't really drink anymore, but no matter how intoxicated I was at the time, I knew everything going around, everything going on around me. So I love that. That makes perfect sense. So what would your superpower you wish you'd have be?
I wish I could teleport because I have a family on two different continents, and it would make my life lots easier if I could just be, get home when I needed to get home and be here when I needed to be here. And I would save a lot of money on
heck yeah
flights. Yeah, a lot.
Oh, I'm with you. That's the one I normally say too. I've had people say fly. I'm like, yeah, flying's cool. And of course you say, oh, I get to see the world from a different perspective. Yeah, sure. But guess what?
I just feel like flying across the Atlantic Ocean would be cold and windy and wet. I just prefer to just get there.
Right?
I don't need to be I don't need the journey.
You want a French pastry from France? Let's go.
Exactly. I'll see you there.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. I love that. Okay. So with that, thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. Again, we're going to do a part 2 of this as well. So we'll link up after and figure out another date and time to finish up the episode here. Because I realize as we're talking, there's just so much more that we need to talk about. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time and for coming on this first episode. And it's already on the video, so now you have to. There's a part 2 now. But thank you so much for agreeing to do a second part too, because that's exciting. This is a first for me. But with that, I just want to give a big shout out to anybody who's tuning in when this episode does release. If you enjoyed that episode, just show a little love by hitting that like button, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and do us a favor, leave a detailed review. Let me know what you like. What would you like to hear more of? What were some of the key tips you took away from this episode? And then, of course, I also have a wellness diary, so feel free to sign up for that as well on everydayelevationspodcast.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at Everyday Elevations for a little bit more exclusive content. It's going to provide you a little bit of latest updates in my life and a peek behind the scenes. And with that, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.